We are enhancing the secret messages project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. We saw how we are able to break the enemy's code even using different headers which were of different lengths, also tried placing them in different parts of the message. However, this is a continuous struggle. We come up with an algorithm, enemy tries to up it, and vice versa. So somebody in the enemy camp realizes that, well, there is a set of headers that I could use which could potentially throw our breaking algorithms off gear. Enemy comes up with this new set of headers: rail, derail, railways. Now notice the length of each of these is even, so 4, 6, and 8, so that's fine. However, the interesting part here is that the word rail is contained inside derail. It's also contained inside railways. We'll see how this plays havoc with our with our breaking algorithm, but there's always a way out. We'll see how we solve this because this is really, really interesting. So let's see this in the code. Like I said here, enemy is using three headers: rail, derail, and railways. Now, first, so here I'm printing out the code that the enemy is sending and the code that we are, receiving and trying to break. Clearly, you notice that there is some difference between the two. So we were unable to successfully decode the code. In fact, if you see this carefully, the header here is railway, whereas what we felt is the header is rail. So clearly something has gone wrong. Let's try one more method here. Let's try one more of this. This time round, again, there's a problem. Notice here the code sent was JLOP something JJEG, but what we received is something different. So clearly our algorithm is going wrong. Notice again, we see that derail was the header, but what we decoded was rail. So really something is going off gear, right? Let's try to understand why this is happening and then see how we can fix it. Well, trying to root cause this problem, well, the first thing to understand is that everything happens through this function find header. Now, the way this function works, and we have seen this before, we basically scan through the list of headers. So we look at every header. So and we see if that header is found inside the message that we are looking at. What this means is that my search starts with the first element on the headers list, which happens to be rail. Now, regardless of whether the enemy has used derail or railways as the as the header, this statement in fact always comes true. So which means that the word rail is found inside derail as well as railways, and what that means is that the code thinks that the header is rail. Notice the header is always seen as rail because rail is contained inside both of these. And then of course we go wrong because that was not the header that was sent, and our parsing, our string slicing then goes haywire because we underestimate the placement of this wrongly. The question is, how do we solve this? In fact, this got me thinking for quite a long time till I came up with a solution which I think looks quite interesting to me. Do take a moment to think about this. You may want to pause the video here and think about how you would solve it. But let's see how I solve this. In fact, the interesting bit here is to look at this headers list. Like I said, the problem is coming because we start from checking with rail, derail, and railways. And regardless of what header has been sent, we are always going to find the string rail inside these headers, which means we'll always think the header was rail, and that can sometimes go wrong. The interesting point, however, is that rail is contained inside railways, but railways is not contained inside rail. Now, what I'm getting at is that if somehow I could invert this list in a way that the longest word comes first, then the shorter word, and then the shortest word, I would be okay, because then I'll be checking the railways first, then I'll check for derail, and then I check for rail. And that will make sure that the entire word is checked and not just a part of the word, and we will be fine with that. How do I reverse the string in a way that it's sort of like, in reverse order of, let's say, length of strings? In fact, that is an interesting problem. One of the methods you could do is to find the length of each of these and then sort that list in the reverse order. But it turns out that, Python gives us a simpler method of doing it, a more concise way of doing it. So I'm just going to do that over here. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to just say, let's say I did this method called sorted, and I say headers list key equals to length. So what I mean is that, do this sorting based on the length of those strings, and I say reverse equals to true. So what this will do is very interesting. It puts this list in a way that the longest header comes first, and this is what I want because I want to start checking from this list. So I'm going to take exactly this command and I say, let's create a new list here. Say header, let's say hdrrcv is given by sorted, let's say headers list key equals to length. Like I said, we want to do it with the length of the string, and reverse equals to true because I want to put this in the reverse order. And once I do this, so I had the header list, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run this key, run my search not on the headers list, but in fact htr, let's say, receive. And that is really all I need to do, because this will make sure that my railways get searched first, then derail, and then rail. And hence, I will be fine, because if the header is only rail, my railways will not find it, and this will be fine. Now, the interesting part here is that this solution will keep working even if we do not have this kind of a situation, because all we are doing is to search from top to bottom. Rather, all we are doing is to search from the longest to the shortest, which is actually the same as searching in any order. Let's see this working. Now, when I, so this time it turns out that my code was rail, and indeed I decoded rail. My code, notice, matches. Let's get to a case where we have derail, or let's say, yeah, so now we got a derail. For example, my code here is derail. My header was derail. My header found was also derail, which means I managed to pick that header up, and indeed the code then matches perfectly. And this is not a surprise at all. I look at this, let's say this time around the code is railways. This is interesting. So I would have got this wrong if I was searching for rails first, rather rail first. But now I know it's railways, and in fact this happens to be my code, and it perfectly matches to this, what I have said. Pretty interesting how we solve this. In fact, there may be other methods. I'm sure there are other methods of solving this too. If you have any ideas of how we could solve this differently, please do let me know. I will be very happy to discuss. In general, if you find that this way of learning is interesting, it makes you think, look at our website, because there are many, many, many such activities. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.